Almost invariably, when you deal with debates or dialogues with people of a different conviction, there's always a problem that seems to pop up, and that is the problem of double standards. What are double standards, or what is a double standard? It's when in a debate your opponent wishes to apply a standard or rule to your position which he's not willing to apply to his own position. And so the standard can be applied to you, but not to me. And so this is an argument that we would call a double standard. And particularly in my debates with Muslims, they apply this principle all the time. We can use textual criticism against the Bible, but don't you dare use textual criticism against the Quran. We can question the Bible's reliability, but don't you dare question the Islamic reliability using the very same standards they're using. This is what we call a double standard. So I have other videos on this. I have another video on double standards in Islam, and that is a short video that I did as well. But the other double standard that I keep hearing over and over and over again is the claim that Muslims make, and one of the most attacked persons in the New Testament that Muslims always attack is the Apostle Paul. And they will argue that Paul corrupted the teachings of Jesus, that Paul really wasn't a true disciple or apostle of Jesus. I'll put another video in the description box below where I deal with the fact that the early Muslims did believe that Paul was an apostle. Not only did they believe he was an apostle, they believe that he was commissioned by Jesus Christ. So the arguments that most Muslims use today come from it's really an argument that arose in the 1930s, particularly by scholars like Bauer and others that came up with this ideal. Basically, long story short, making the claim based on what's called Hegelian philosophy that Paul and James were at loggerheads with each other. That is complete rubbish, and most New Testament scholars today would reject that idea. So here's the problem. Muslims will say, how can you trust Paul? Paul was not an apostle because he never saw Jesus, which is not true. Paul did see the risen Jesus, and there's also a book written by Stanley Porter, When Paul Met Jesus, that argues that Paul may have met Jesus in his earthly ministry. Here's the problem. Muhammad never saw Jesus, therefore Muhammad cannot be a prophet or an apostle of God. Same standard. Well, Paul did actually see Jesus. Paul lived in the 1st century AD. Muhammad lived in the 7th century AD in Arabia. So by the very same token and the same argument that Muslims use, if Muhammad didn't see Jesus, then Muhammad cannot be a prophet or an apostle. Thank you for watching.